Welcome to Grit, Growth, Grace podcast.
We're your hosts. I'm Crissy Morgan.
And I'm Kim Gibbs. This space is for women who are ambitious, driven, and ready to make a meaningful impact.
We get it. Navigating success in male-dominated industries can feel very isolating, but you don't have to do it alone.
Here we'll talk about the real challenges, celebrate the wins, and give you practical tools to grow with confidence.
Because it's not just about making it to the top. It's about bringing others with you and thriving in the process.
Let's jump in and get started.
Welcome to Grit, Growth, Grace podcast. I'm Crissy Morgan, and this is my co-host, Kim Gibbs. And
I'm Kim.
We're re-recording our podcast because we're on a brand new platform, and we are super excited to have you join us again. Today, we're going to talk about...
This is awesome.
Yeah, this is going to be super cool. It's a lot more fun and interesting, and hopefully you like the new platform, and we'd appreciate your feedback on that. But today, we're going to talk about aligned, not alike, when leadership means navigating relationships.
That's right. So essentially, today's topic is something that Crissy and I, and probably anybody who's in a leadership role altogether, but especially in a world where maybe you don't feel like you are the same as everybody else, is how do you work with people that are totally different than you, or that you probably wouldn't hang out with outside of work, and be a successful leader at that. And it is definitely one of those things that I feel like the older you get, the more you realize that it isn't about you, it's about them. And so let's jump right in and talk about leading people that aren't necessarily exactly like you or you would spend your weekends with, but making the best of it and hitting business objectives and ensuring they feel empowered to be the best versions of themselves.
That's
so
right.
Let's talk about it.
All right, well, let's get into segment 1, Kim, and really talk about what do you do when you don't get to pick your people? Can you share a time with me when you've had to work closely with someone you really didn't connect with, and how did you handle that?
Well, because of the size of my business, I get to work with everyone closely. So I do work with a lot of people that I don't connect with personally in the context of outside of business a lot. I would say the most recent, I would say, is somebody that I actually worked very closely with, but we didn't recognize the business objectives together as the same, and we didn't have the same work style. Like, I'm definitely let's put it down, let's get it moving, let's go forward. And their work style was definitely like, it'll come to me and then I'll do my thing. And then the next thing will come to me and I'll do my thing. And that's really not how manufacturing works. You very much have to try to avoid the fires ahead of time. So I essentially wanted to get curious. How do I make it? What is the thing? So I changed my perception, or I don't even want to say my perception, maybe the way I approach, from, hey, I don't understand why this is not done, to, hey, let me be curious about this and figure out, is there a barrier? Is it a lack of motivation? Is it a lack of skill? Is it something that I can support the person with? Or is it just not even understanding that the impact that they're having on the whole business? So getting curious, thinking about it, and trying to meet them where they are to figure out what it really truly is has been my go-to. And that's been my go-to probably in the last 24 months. And it's a much more productive and I want to say diffusing. Like, when you come in hot and you are in a leadership position and want to know about productivity, it is very common to have that like, wait a second, you're criticizing me feedback. And that's not what you're likely after. You just want to know about the productivity side. But unless you go in with that, like, interested in what's really going on perception, it comes across as coming in hot. So learning to essentially pull the reins back and get curious has been my thing. What about yourself? What do you remind yourself in moments when your gut says, avoid the person, or avoid the person but you have to engage.
Well, that's definitely not an easy thing to do, but in order to be a really good leader, it is about doing the hard things. So if you do the hard things, you're going to have that power, and you're going to be able to move forward. And there's several moments where I'd love to just not have to go talk to that person. But right, it's never easy, but it's like, you just have to remind yourself that you're strong, you're capable. I'm here to do this job. I wouldn't be in the position if someone didn't think I was capable. And just having the guts and the confidence to go face that person and be authentic, even if they think you're fake. But, let them be who they are and focus on what I can control. I mean, I can be a good role model and not shrink back. I can continue to show up. Often others struggle when they see someone doing better, and they're upset that they're not at that point. And it's not just me. There's several studies, including some from the Harvard Business Review, that show we leaders are not alone. As you go higher into leadership, not everyone's going to like you. I mean, if everyone likes you, you're not doing your job. But you shouldn't let your personal feelings hinder your professional collaboration. Always maintain professionalism and focus on the common objectives. And even when I was doing research for this podcast, there was a Gallup study that showed only 30% of employees strongly agreed that their opinions count at work. But leaders who foster those inclusive environments and build those connections with others, even if you don't personally like them, they see up to a 20% reduction in turnover and a 12% increase in productivity. Building that connection really matters.
Yep. And I would say, like, our takeaway is connection isn't chemistry, it's commitment. And it's commitment to hearing the other person, right? Like hearing what their actual barrier is, motivation is, whatever the thing is. Because if you can come across from that perspective, especially as a woman, you actually hold a lot of power versus coming in because you already have walls, right? There's walls you're going to beat against. So if you come in with that connection, is my commitment to you in the context of I'm going to help you support you hitting business objectives versus I have to have some sort of like, you have to like me situation. You're going to thrive and your employees are going to respect you and appreciate you for seeing them. And I think you do that tremendously. I know that you make a great effort in your business to see everyone and support them in becoming more. And it matters.
Well, thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. It's always good to get positive feedback, because as leaders, it's usually not positive. They're usually complaining because they don't like your decisions.
Yes, or you're alone and no one ever tells you you're doing awesome. So here I am telling you you're doing awesome.
Thank you for the virtual high five.
You got it. You got it. You deserve it. Let's
Right.
move in to our next segment. And our next segment is about motivation and meaning, like what motivates those who work with you. So this was actually put in my face not too long ago situation for me. And I went to Utah. I have a really good girlfriend who lives in Park City, and so I went to ski with her for a weekend, and she's an entrepreneur, and she's grown a business before. And her feedback to me was, well, can you connect what's the actual number one KPI of your business to what motivates every single individual? And she's like, I think over the next quarter, you need to figure out what motivates 10 of your employees and how that's connected to your KPI. And that sounded overwhelmingly daunting, but also at the same time, it made perfect sense, right? Like what I get value out of, like, for example, growing the business, seeing our growth, seeing people be more and be better, that excites me. But somebody who's pushing a button to make a bunch of parts, that may not be it at all. It may be make as many parts efficiently as possible so that I feel satisfied that I produced something today and I supported the business so that I can go home and take care of my kids in a really meaningful way. And I have to figure that out, right? So that was my aha that I had about motivation when you're talking about that difference of checking yourself and being like, oh, okay, that's right. What have you learned about motivation, or even your own biases when someone else is triggering for you or not easy to work with?
That's when I really have to step back and just get curious about the other person, and really try to understand what's going on through their lens, and what their perception is, and just really start asking a lot of questions to them, um, and try to understand why they are being the way that they are, or why are they trying to be difficult, or is it something that they are afraid of, something that they don't feel confident with. Just really trying to step back, ask a lot of open-ended questions, because it would be easy for me to just immediately come in and steamroll them with my own ideas and everything else. But I'm not going to I'm not going to be able to get a lot of traction if I just come in and try to micromanage. Nobody wants to be micromanaged. They want to feel empowered to be good at their jobs. And so that's when I've got to take that step back and take that pause and just really try to, again, get curious and understand what it is that's going on with them, and then try to figure out from there how to move forward. So, I mean, and
Yeah, and
and it's
I think that's good. I mean, I do think that the forward motion is the most important thing, and going in with that perspective is really important.
and the main takeaway is growth starts when you lead past your preferences. Of course, we'd love to have an A team all the time, not moody, perfect. And that's just not reality. We're human beings. We have mood swings. We have all kinds of different things that are going on in our home lives. And even though we try not to, we bring it to work. So it's like you've just got to lead past what you would prefer to have and accept reality and do your best with what you can control.
Yep. And I would say motivation, or figuring out those motivation points, will cultivate a deeper trust. And then once you have that trust, if you can tie it to the KPIs, your business will bloom, or your objective as a leader will bloom, because you got your team rowing in the same direction, even if they're rowing for different reasons.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely. I mean, it's really about just focusing on working with the team, understanding what motivates them, getting to know more about them, and more about what can you do to inspire them to do better and be better. What's the trigger for them that's going to help them be inspired to do that?
Do you, sorry, this is an off the cuff question. Do you look for opportunities with people that work for you, that you'd be like, you like take a mental note going like, oh, that's an interest of theirs? Do you do that?
Yeah, like especially during one-on-ones with directly with my team members, even if I'm on the manufacturing floor, but I will start to ask them very open-ended questions about what they might have done over the weekend, and just start to, peel back the onion. And most recently, I found out, one of my team members likes to trade stocks and likes to watch the stock market, and so it was like, oh, okay. So he's into finance. He watches those things. He might be really good in working with the controller to help us understand our finances. So just by just having that conversation and talking and asking those questions, even when I'm out on the floor, you can really start to understand, like, if you ask questions in a really genuine way, people want to open up, for the most part, and talk to you. They just need that opening, that you're sincere about it. So that's when it's
Yeah,
really important to just be very authentic about the questions that you're asking, not just generalized questions.
yeah. I think that really does tie in to our whole segment too. The takeaway is growth starts when you lead past your preferences.
Absolutely. So
All right. moving on. I do really appreciate you. I mean, I have to say that like since I've known you, I've probably had some of the most personal challenging things happen to me that I've ever had because of being a mom versus just being my solo person, right? Like I think once you become a parent, you even if you are in a relationship that is very committed and own a business together with that person, I think once you have that kid, it's like there's something bigger than you that's really important. And I couldn't have made it through a lot, I don't think, without knowing that I had your support and or your check-in, right? Like you were holding me accountable for things like, well, why can't you change it? Like I never had that before. And the amount of growth that I've gone through and been able to navigate all the other shenanigans because of you. I just want you to know that. And so when I think about that, I'm like, you can do so much. You should be like the biggest badass COO on the planet.
Well, you give me a lot of confidence. That's for sure. I'm sure I know I wouldn't have done a lot of this stuff over the last 2.5 years if I didn't have you behind me, giving me that nudge that there's never really been anybody there
I know.
to
I feel
do.
like women really, and you know what's very interesting is that I don't think it's just women in leadership. I think it's all women at this point in their life. Like you get to your 40s, you start to not be ID'd anymore. Guys don't look at you anymore. Your kids, you know, you're a taxi cab, a chef, a nanny, a maid, whatever you are to your family, and then the house manager and all of these other things. And no one ever says good job. And it's definitely like this lonely, lonely place. And having somebody like you who's not just willing to be like, hey, I think you screwed up, but also willing to say, like, I'm checking on you. Where are you at with? Or, hey, let's do this thing to make ourselves better. I think that having that camaraderie really, really, really makes a difference. And so I really appreciate that. Okay, Crissy, moving into our next segment. This one's about building genuine connections and what are some actual tools we can have or give our listeners that would be very useful, even when it's hard, because it is hard, especially when you are sort of the outsider to the group. And that can happen just because you're a leader, but it can also happen because, well, you're a woman with a bunch of men
So true.
and a lady brain.
And a lady brain.
Oh my goodness.
So what would you say? How do you keep showing up for someone who doesn't show a lot of warmth back to you?
Ew. I'm just joking. I show up for people that don't show a lot of warmth to me all the time. Just joking. Gosh, what would I say? I think when you are in that leadership position, you already sort of have I guess the best way to think of it is like you already have one of those sumo suits on that you have like a bubble around you, right? Like you kind of have to be able to take the impact and still be standing. So when somebody isn't warm, that's a like indication to me that that's fine. Like that you do you. You don't have to be warm, but let's connect. Like what is it that is the thing? Like it's fine if you're not a warm person. But I definitely do know that me personally, because of my style, I go at a very high pace. I have very high expectations of myself. And consequently, the older I get, I realize that comes across to everybody else. Like I have high expectations. And so I give a disclaimer when people start. I'm going to have really high expectations. We all really like our jobs here. However, don't be weirded out when I come up to you and ask you a question. I'm there to support you. That's what it's about, not about me checking in on you, especially since I'm not your manager. So that's what I would do, or what I do is I kind of give the disclaimer of, and then when that person isn't warm to me, I just remind myself, like, okay, they don't have to like my style, but I was very forthcoming and honest with them about who I am. I just need to figure out who they are and meet them there. And as long as I can meet them there in some way and pull out whatever it is that I need, whether it's figuring out how to remove a barrier or support them in a meaningful way, I do it. How about you? What's your go-to move when you use to build bridges when things feel awkward or forced?
Something I learned was to imagine that person as a child and have compassion for them, not knowing what may have happened in their life to make them who they are. Maybe they didn't learn how to process emotions or be supportive, but also to recognize that not everyone's going to like me, even though I'd like it to be that way. Not everyone's going to like me or my decisions as a leader. We're making the hard decisions. We're often alone at the front of the line, many times ridiculed for our decisions, especially when we have to make really tough ones. If there's cuts in the business or layoffs or things like that. So, but I also do my best to try not to micromanage. I try to give the team trust and build that bridge with them, because if I'm hawking every move that they make and watching everything and challenging all the time, they're going to feel that micromanagey type of feeling, and then I'm not going to empower them. So I try to do that as well. So do the imagination, where think of them as a child, what it might be like. Don't micromanage, and just recognize that they're not always going to like me, and I've got to be okay with that.
Yeah. And I think your micromanage made me think of something that I do in addition to the explanation about my style and how I approach things. Because when I see conflict or I see friction or I see anything like that, that to me is like an indicator. We need to make some sort of adjustment. Sometimes it's a tiny adjustment and sometimes it's a big adjustment. So when I feel that, I usually take that action, right? Like go and have the conversation. But the other thing that I do on the flip side is if I see somebody doing something awesome, regardless of who they are, I always like will say it loudly too. Great job, or thank you for taking the initiative to fill in the blank, or whatever it is. So I try to praise as much as I can in public and and let them know that I really truly do respect them doing their job well, right? Like, hey, thanks for perfectly aligning the stuff in your bin from all the parts you made today so that the person behind you can easily count. Like that actually makes a difference. So thank you. And there's a lot of people that don't realize that their actions truly do make a positive impact because it's just what they do. So
Yeah,
giving a positive feedback is really supportive of that.
and you do a really great job, because I hear this in our weekly accountability meetings. Is you're always asking your team, what can I do to support you? Or do you feel resourced? You're always checking in to make sure that they feel supported, that they feel like they're being resourced. And that's just something I always hear you asking, especially when we're talking about all the different things. And that's just fantastic. That's a great way to really
Aw.
connect with your team.
And I do have to say that you're a big reason why I'm comfortable doing that because I feel like even if I don't know the answer, you might. So I can always bounce my ideas off of you. So thank you. So
Well,
that's
yeah, I'll use my lady brain to try to help you out.
uh, well, your lady brain's brilliant. So yay. Yay for me. Winning all around.
All right, fabulous. All right, Kim, let's go ahead and head on into segment 4, from discomfort to influence. Don't let the disconnection win. So, what story or moment really comes to mind when you had to choose connection over comfort, and how did it change the dynamic for you?
Well, I think the one that is like one of the most impactful ones for me personally recently is one with one of my leads, and he shared a really personal thing with me, and I could identify with that because it was about mental health and stress and um, and dealing with stress and then your whole family dynamic. And he's a male, and he works a lot. And so, and I know that because I own the business. And he's a very integral part of our success. And he knows that, and he has extreme ownership over that, which is fantastic, right? That's what we want when we're a business owner or a leader. We want somebody who loves and does an amazing job for us. But you have to balance that with, you know, their health and the business's objectives. So when he approached me about having this level of stress, which I don't do. I'm a very private person. So frankly, even just this podcast is uncomfortable for me. Um, I, I shared my own issues and journey that I've had owning a business and, you know, like waiting to have a kid for 20 years essentially, instead of having it in my early 20s because of the level of stress in which I was under. So being very, very, very open with this person about my own experience, like sharing my flaw, made this person like fully respect me as his leader, and then recognize that I really saw him as a human. And I think our ability to communicate and move forward is astronomically better because I was willing to be vulnerable to him. And it's not, you know, it's not something that I'm comfortable with, but I do know it does truly make a big difference. What about you? What do you do when you're tempted to disengage? Because that's tempting often, but you know the person still needs your leadership.
That one, I really have to step back, and it's another one of those moments where I like to use the pause button, and collect my thoughts and know that if I want to be a really great leader and I want to bring others up with me, then I need to set those feelings aside and really focus on making that person feel psychologically safe with me so that I can still continue to show up for them, because I am the weather when it comes to being with the team. And if I come in and I'm disengaged and not participating, I am showing everybody else that that's the tone. If I come in a bad mood and I'm not supportive of other people and I'm crabby, then I set the tone that way. So it's important for me to remember that I'm always being watched. And no matter what, I always have to try to be on my best. Now, if I want to go in my office and curl up in a fetal position and cry later on, that's okay when nobody can see it. But with the team, I need to make sure that, again, I'm the weather. I can't come in like a tornado. I have to come in and make sure that, again, show reality, but I can still be positive. I can take the positive takeaways, understand the reality of the situation, and make sure that I show my team members and those people there that that they can have this leadership out of me. I'm still going to be there. I'm still going to be supportive, even though I may just want to not take that on. But you've got to show your flaws sometimes, and because that's the superpower, right?
Yeah.
That's the vulnerability, that's the authenticity that everybody is looking for.
Yeah. And I would say, not only from my perception, I think that you do that very well because you're very much of a fact, metric driven person. So you don't come into something about with just sort of subjective information. You usually come to something with pretty significant clarity. And I think that empowers you. And if I was being led by you, I definitely, well, and when you do hold me accountable, you absolutely like, okay, you said you were going to get this done in 3 weeks. We're at 6. TikTok, lady. It's from a positive place. It's not a negative place. And I think that makes such an impact, especially when you're trying to lead somebody that does seem disengaged, that having the facts, having the clarity, and then being positive versus like, what the hell is going on with your productivity here, people?
You got to show people that you personally care and that you give a damn, right?
Hmm.
Like you
Yeah.
you care
Yeah.
about them.
Yeah. And I think what you just said, that you care about them, not their productivity, them is the thing. And I think that that's really ultimately as a leader, it's so challenging because you do have to care about them to be fantastic at leading, but you also have to care about the business objectives. And that balance is it's like it is navigation. You navigate
Yeah,
it.
it's
And I
very
think you do a
delicate
fantastic
balance.
job. Yes, it is. Okay, I really like where we're going with this. And I feel like we have some pretty good takeaways for our listeners about leading those who maybe you wouldn't necessarily go have drinks with after work or spend any time with after work. So let's run down our takeaways. What do you think?
I think comfort is optional, but respect is not. So you really,
100%.
yep.
I
What about you,
think
Kim?
connection isn't chemistry. It's required. I'm pretty sure that's not what it was. Oh, connection isn't
Commitment.
chemistry, it's commitment. Yes. And consistent. FYI, you have to consistently do it. This just reminded me of something, so I'm going to say it. And Jamie, you can do whatever you want with this. Um, I have, when, so th- a predecessor of mine in part of the role in which I'm in right now had fantastic chemistry with a lot of people. However, his productivity was super, super like not, it just didn't exist. And frankly, he didn't know what the heck was going on. And so it was very challenging for really high producing people. So he had this fantastic chemistry with people, but he never used it. And when he left, there was this void of the chemistry, but not necessarily that work. So to clear that gap, it took a ton of effort to get that like, oh, I don't necessarily have the chemistry, but I do care about you as the human. And that was a good lesson for me, I think. Okay, what about you? Another takeaway.
Um, Another takeaway I would say is empower your people and don't micromanage. If you really want to build those connections, you have to find a way to build that trust and lean into that trust with your team so that they feel respected and in control of being able to do their jobs.
Yeah, I agree. And lead past your preferences. Like you may not like the way somebody is getting that results done in the context of you don't like the person or they're maybe not as quite as tidy as you'd want, but they're still getting the results. Okay,
Yeah, you just
lead past your
you got to
preferences.
yeah, you got to decide that your leadership is bigger than your comfort zone.
Yep, I think that's perfect. Leadership's bigger than your comfort zone. I
So
like that.
excited.
Good
Oh
job.
yeah, so excited that, everybody could join us. I mean, what a great episode today. By showing up and listening to this episode, we know that you want to learn more about navigating leadership and building some connections with those out there.
So I would like to challenge our listeners to one action item because I too have been challenged, and that is, what would you do to engage with somebody whom you maybe would prefer not to engage with to support them to become better? Because even the smallest engagement will support yourself in growth. So I challenge you to do that, to offer kindness or offer a resource or offer love, lead with love. Um, even if it's not about work, connection will make that happen for you as far as feeling more confident in your own self in the
Yeah.
leadership role
And
with people
feel
that maybe don't like it.
Yeah, we'd love to hear about it too. So if after you listen to the episode, you want to drop a comment, let us know how it worked out, who you connected with, what you did, share it with the rest of our listeners so that we can all hear what great things that you took away and were able to do as a result.
Yeah, we'd love it. All right. Thank you so much from Grit Growth Grace podcast for listening. And Crissy, of course, thank you for taking all of your valuable time to chat with me about leadership because you are fantastic at it.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Kim. Until next
I
time,
appreciate you.
we'll see you later.
See you
Bye.
later. Bye.